Self-care takes on a whole new meaning when you step into your 40s because it's no longer about quick fixes or surface level routines. It becomes about building a foundation that carries you into the next stage of life with strength, clarity, and balance. Many women at this stage are balancing careers, family responsibilities, personal goals, and often find themselves drained without realizing how little time they spend on their own needs. Redefining self-care means you stop treating it as an occasional luxury and start treating it as a necessity, something that is woven into your daily life. It's not about adding more things to your to-do list, but about shifting your perspective to prioritize what keeps you grounded, energized, and present. When you begin to see self-care as the root of how you show up for everything else, it no longer feels optional. It feels essential. This stage of life often highlights the gap between what you give and what you keep for yourself. And the truth is, many women carry guilt for even thinking about themselves first. Redefining self-care is understanding that it is not selfish, but actually one of the most responsible things you can do. Because when you are depleted, you can't give anyone the best version of you. Taking time to rest, reflect, and recharge allows you to give from a place of overflow instead of emptiness. And that changes the way you interact with your family, your work, and even with yourself. The power of this perspective is that it shifts your focus from constantly trying to do more for others to learning how to honor your own needs so you don't burn out in the process. In your 40s, your body also starts sending you signals that you can't ignore, and self-care becomes about listening to those signals before they become problems. That means getting enough sleep, moving your body in ways that feel good, eating food that fuels you rather than just fills you, and scheduling the checkups that often get pushed aside. These are not acts of vanity, but acts of preservation, and they remind you that self-care is practical, not indulgent. Your health is the foundation of your energy, your mood, and your ability to keep showing up in every role you carry. By redefining self-care as honoring your health, you give yourself permission to step into longevity and vitality instead of exhaustion. Another part of redefining self-care is setting boundaries that protect your peace and energy. This is not just about saying no to others, but also about saying no to the patterns, habits, and expectations that no longer serve you. At this stage of life, you've likely spent decades saying yes out of obligation, but true self-care is learning that a clear no can be just as powerful as a thoughtful yes. Boundaries create space for the things that truly matter and free you from constantly carrying the weight of everyone else's demands. When you give yourself that freedom, you discover that self-care isn't about isolation, but about choosing what aligns with your values and well-being. Redefining self-care also means reconnecting with joy in simple, intentional ways. It could be a walk in the morning, reading a book without distraction, journaling your thoughts, or simply taking 10 minutes of silence before the day begins. These small rituals, when repeated, become anchors that bring you back to yourself. They don't need to be extravagant or time-consuming. They just need to be consistent reminders that your peace and happiness are priorities. When you incorporate joy into your routine, you're not only refueling your energy, but also reminding yourself that life doesn't have to be lived on autopilot. There is also a mental shift that comes with redefining self-care because it requires you to let go of the outdated belief that worth is tied to productivity. Women in their 40s often carry the weight of proving themselves through doing more. But real self-care flips that narrative. It says your value isn't measured by how much you accomplish in a day, but by how well you take care of the person who makes those accomplishments possible. This is where confidence grows, because when you invest in your own well-being, you start to carry yourself differently. You realize that slowing down, protecting your energy, and honoring your needs isn't weakness, it's strength. Ultimately, redefining self-care in your 40s is about rewriting the story of how you treat yourself and choosing to see your needs as non-negotiable. It's about creating space for balance, energy, and joy without apology. It's about building habits that not only sustain you today, but carry you forward for decades to come. It's recognizing that you are worthy of the same care you've been giving others, and that the most powerful gift you can give yourself is permission to matter in your own life. Learning to set boundaries without guilt becomes one of the most transformative acts of self-care for women in their 40s because at this stage of life, you have already carried years of responsibilities, expectations, and often the habit of saying yes even when you are stretched thin. The reality is that every yes you give out of guilt is a no to yourself, and over time, that pattern chips away at your energy and your confidence. Boundaries are not walls meant to push people away. They are bridges that help you protect your time, energy, and peace so you can show up in a healthier way. When you begin to practice setting boundaries, you realize it is not about being unkind, but about being clear, because clarity is kindness both to yourself and to others who are depending on you. Many women struggle with boundaries because they fear being seen as selfish. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of respect, not just for yourself, but for your relationships. When you say yes out of guilt, resentment quietly builds and it damages the very connections you are trying to preserve. Boundaries remove the silent resentment by replacing it with honesty, and honesty always strengthens real relationships. In your 40s, you reach a point where people-pleasing no longer works. It drains you and leaves you disconnected from your own needs. By shifting the mindset that boundaries are selfish into the mindset that boundaries are loving, you begin to give others the best of you instead of what's left of you. Boundaries can be as simple as protecting your time by not overcommitting, protecting your energy by stepping away from toxic conversations, or protecting your focus by turning off distractions that consume your day. These may sound small, but they create massive impact because every time you draw a line, you reclaim part of yourself. In the past, you may have tolerated situations or people that exhausted you because you felt it was your role to endure, but in your 40s, you gain the awareness that your peace matters just as much as your productivity. This awareness allows you to stand firm when your boundaries are tested, not because you are harsh, but because you understand the cost of living without them. It is also important to realize that boundaries are not only about what you keep out, but also about what you let in. When you learn to say no to things that do not align with your values or goals, you create space for opportunities, people, and experiences that actually bring you joy and fulfillment. This shift changes the way you prioritize your time because suddenly you are no longer operating from a place of obligation, but from a place of intention. Your calendar stops being filled with what drains you and starts being filled with what nourishes you, and that balance is what makes boundaries so powerful. Guilt will often show up when you begin setting boundaries, especially if you are used to putting everyone else first. But guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking an old habit. The discomfort of saying no eventually leads to the relief of living more authentically, and over time, that relief outweighs the guilt. You start to realize that the people who truly value you will respect your boundaries, and those who don't were benefiting from your lack of them. This clarity is empowering because it helps you see who is in your life for mutual respect and who is only there for what you can give. Boundaries also extend to the way you talk to yourself, because self-talk can either protect your energy or deplete it. If you constantly criticize yourself or hold yourself to unrealistic standards, you are breaking your own boundaries with your inner voice. Self-care in this area means treating yourself with the same compassion and patience you offer others and refusing to allow negative self-talk to dominate your mind. By creating boundaries with yourself, you build confidence that supports every other area of your life. At the end of the day, learning to set boundaries without guilt is about reclaiming ownership of your time, energy, and peace so that you are no longer operating from a place of constant depletion. It is about understanding that saying no is not rejection. It is redirection toward what truly matters to you. It is about choosing clarity over guilt and authenticity over resentment, and realizing that when you protect your own well-being, you give others the gift of a stronger, healthier, more present version of you. Prioritizing physical and mental health before burnout is one of the most crucial lessons for women in their 40s, because by this stage, you have already spent years running on empty and convincing yourself that exhaustion is normal. Burnout does not show up overnight. It builds slowly through skipped meals, late nights, constant stress, and the unspoken belief that you have to keep pushing no matter how drained you feel. The danger is that by the time you recognize burnout, it has already taken a toll on your body, your mind, and your relationships. That is why self-care must become proactive rather than reactive, a daily practice that supports your energy and your resilience long before you hit the wall. It is about choosing to listen to the whispers of your body and mind instead of waiting for them to start screaming. Physical health in your 40s becomes less about appearance and more about sustainability because strength, energy, and vitality are what allow you to keep showing up fully in your life. Taking care of your body means moving it in ways that feel good, nourishing it with food that fuels your energy, and resting it long enough to recover. This is not about chasing perfection, but about honoring the body that carries you through every responsibility you hold. When you treat your body as an ally instead of an afterthought, you begin to notice how much more capable you feel, and that sense of capability becomes confidence. Physical health is the anchor that steadies you when stress is high, and without it, everything else in your life feels heavier. Mental health is just as important, yet it is often the part that women are most likely to ignore because it is easier to mask emotional strain than physical pain. But ignoring your mental health eventually shows up in the way you think, the way you react, and the way you connect with others. Stress, anxiety, and overwhelm are signals that your mind is asking for rest, clarity, and care, and when you ignore those signals, burnout follows quickly. Prioritizing mental health might mean giving yourself permission to rest without guilt, creating time to do things that bring you joy, or seeking support when the weight becomes too heavy to carry alone. Protecting your mind is not weakness. It is the strength that allows you to handle life with more patience and peace. Preventing burnout also requires learning how to pace yourself, because many women in their 40s have mastered the art of multitasking while forgetting that constant multitasking drains focus and energy faster than anything else. Slowing down does not mean you are falling behind. It means you are building a rhythm that is sustainable. Taking breaks throughout the day, practicing mindfulness, and being intentional with your schedule are small but powerful steps that prevent exhaustion from creeping in. When you learn to work with your natural rhythms instead of against them, you not only protect yourself from burnout, but you also discover that you can accomplish more with less stress. Another key part of prioritizing health is learning to check in with yourself regularly, asking simple but important questions like, how am I feeling, what do I need, and where am I running on empty? These self-check-ins bring awareness to areas of neglect before they spiral into problems. Many women are quick to respond to everyone else's needs, but rarely pause to ask about their own, and that constant self-neglect leads directly to burnout. By making it a habit to listen to your own signals, you catch the signs of fatigue and stress early enough to respond with care. Awareness becomes prevention, and prevention becomes power. There is also a shift in mindset that happens when you start prioritizing health before burnout, because you realize you no longer have to earn the right to rest or justify the need for care. You start to understand that health is not a reward for hard work, but the foundation that makes all your hard work possible. Rest is productive, balance is strength, and self-care is the strategy that keeps you from breaking down under pressure. This perspective removes the guilt of putting yourself first because you recognize that your well-being supports not only you, but everyone who depends on you. Ultimately, choosing to prioritize physical and mental health before burnout is an act of long-term wisdom. It is about protecting your energy so you can keep moving forward without collapsing under the weight of constant pressure. It is about creating a lifestyle that nourishes you daily instead of waiting for exhaustion to force you to stop. It is about recognizing that your body and mind deserve care today, not someday, and the earlier you choose to honor that, the stronger, healthier, and more fulfilled you become. Finding joy in small daily rituals that recharge you is one of the simplest yet most powerful forms of self-care because it shifts the focus from waiting for big moments to appreciating the little ones that sustain your energy each day. Many women in their 40s have spent years living on autopilot, rushing from one responsibility to the next, and rarely pausing to notice the beauty in the present moment. Small rituals act as anchors that pull you back into yourself, reminding you that joy doesn't always have to come from grand achievements or special occasions. It can be found in the way you start your morning, the quiet sip of coffee, or the peace of a short evening walk. These rituals might seem insignificant on the surface, but they build a rhythm of self-care that makes your days feel lighter and more intentional. The beauty of daily rituals is that they do not require massive amounts of time, money, or planning, which makes them sustainable even in the busiest of seasons. Something as simple as journaling your thoughts before bed, lighting a candle while you read, or playing your favorite music while cooking can shift your energy from stressed to grounded. These little moments are not about escaping your responsibilities. They are about recharging yourself so you can handle them with more clarity and calm. Women in their 40s often underestimate how much these practices matter because they feel too small to make a difference. But the truth is that consistency in small things often brings the biggest transformation over time. Daily rituals also give you a sense of control in a world that constantly pulls you in different directions. Life at this stage can feel unpredictable, with family needs, career demands, and personal changes all competing for your attention. But when you create rituals that belong only to you, you reclaim a piece of stability. It becomes a way of saying, no matter what else is happening, I will give myself this moment. That consistency is grounding, and it helps reduce the chaos that comes from constantly reacting to everything around you. These rituals teach you that joy does not have to be postponed until everything else is perfect. It can exist right here in the middle of the imperfection. There is also a deeper emotional value in creating rituals because they become symbols of self-worth. When you choose to pause and do something that brings you peace or happiness, you are sending yourself the message that your joy matters. This small act of prioritizing yourself builds confidence and reshapes the way you see your own needs. Instead of waiting for others to validate you, these rituals remind you that you are capable of giving yourself the care, love, and attention you deserve. Over time, these practices shift your mindset from simply surviving the day to actually enjoying it. Another important part of daily rituals is that they help regulate stress, which often builds quietly in the background of a busy life. When you commit to habits like mindful breathing, stretching, or even taking 5 minutes of silence in the middle of the day, you interrupt the cycle of constant stress before it spirals into overwhelm. These small pauses allow your body to reset and your mind to refocus, creating more space for patience and clarity. Stress may not disappear, but your capacity to handle it grows stronger when you consistently recharge yourself with little moments of calm. Daily rituals also bring more presence into your relationships because when you are recharged, you are able to give your full attention to the people around you. Instead of being distracted or drained, you show up with more patience, kindness, and energy. A woman who invests in her own joy creates a ripple effect that touches her family, friends, and colleagues because her energy becomes a source of calm and inspiration. In this way, small rituals are not just about personal care. They are also about strengthening the way you connect with others. Ultimately, finding joy in daily rituals is about breaking the belief that fulfillment comes only from big milestones or once-in-a-while experiences. It is about recognizing that the moments that truly sustain you are often the ones that seem the simplest. These rituals are reminders that life's beauty lies in the everyday details, and when you choose to honor them, you give yourself a steady source of strength, peace, and happiness that carries you through whatever challenges the day may bring. Building confidence by saying yes to yourself first is one of the most empowering forms of self-care for women in their 40s because it requires unlearning years of putting everyone else's needs above your own. For so long, many women have been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to how much they give, how available they are, or how much they sacrifice. But saying yes to yourself flips that script completely. It is the act of recognizing that your dreams, desires, and well-being are just as valid as the demands placed on you. Confidence grows when you stop waiting for permission from others and start granting permission to yourself, because every yes you give to your own needs builds trust in your ability to honor who you are and what matters to you. Saying yes to yourself does not mean ignoring others. It means including yourself in the circle of care and attention you so freely extend to everyone else. Too often, women place themselves at the bottom of the priority list and call it selflessness, when in reality it becomes self-neglect. When you finally say yes to your own rest, your own goals, and your own joy, you begin to rebuild the confidence that may have been buried under years of busyness and responsibility. This yes is powerful because it tells your mind and body that you are worthy of time, energy, and focus, not just what is left over after everyone else is taken care of. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something you build by consistently choosing. Every time you say yes to yourself, you strengthen the belief that you are capable and deserving. That might look like saying yes to pursuing a passion you once set aside, saying yes to a healthier lifestyle that makes you feel strong, or saying yes to moments of quiet when your schedule is overflowing. These choices may seem simple, but they reinforce the habit of listening to your own needs instead of dismissing them. Over time, those repeated yeses create a new identity, one where you are not defined by how much you give away, but by how fully you live. Confidence does not come from waiting until the perfect moment. It comes from choosing to show up for yourself right now. Another part of building confidence through saying yes to yourself is that it challenges the guilt that often arises when women prioritize their own needs. Guilt is a natural response when you have spent years conditioned to believe that self-care is selfish. But every yes you give yourself weakens that guilt and strengthens your ability to stand firm in your choices. You begin to see that when you honor your needs, you are not taking away from others, but actually improving the way you show up for them. A confident woman who says yes to herself first is more patient, more resilient, and more present because she is no longer running on empty. Saying yes to yourself also means taking risks that align with your growth, even when they scare you. Confidence is not built in comfort zones. It is built in the moments you choose to honor your potential instead of shrinking back. Whether it is starting a new project, setting stronger boundaries, or speaking up for what you believe in, each yes you give to growth adds another layer of strength to your confidence. By practicing this consistently, you begin to carry yourself differently, no longer apologizing for taking space, but embracing the fact that you deserve to occupy it fully. There is also freedom in saying yes to yourself because it breaks the cycle of waiting for external validation. When you stop relying on others to approve your choices and instead approve them yourself, you no longer tie your confidence to their opinions. This creates a deeper kind of strength, one that cannot be shaken by criticism or rejection because it is rooted in your own self-respect. Confidence built in this way is lasting because it does not depend on circumstances. It depends on your willingness to keep choosing yourself again and again. Ultimately, building confidence by saying yes to yourself first is about rewriting the story of how you value yourself and reclaiming the power that comes from honoring your own needs, dreams, and boundaries. It is the practice of turning inward for validation, trusting your own voice, and recognizing that every time you choose yourself, you are not only fueling your confidence, but also setting an example of strength for those around you. It is about understanding that your yes matters, and the more you give it to yourself, the more unstoppable your confidence becomes.